out on video. I have no idea if anybody watched it. I want to try to do the poems that we have to finish today to finish the class. And at the very least, since I didn't get to do any done, being sick, at the very least, talk about Dunn's Meditation 17. Last week, I left class. I went home and ate lunch. Like within half an hour, just got nailed by a sinus infection. Was sick the whole rest of the week. I started your papers. My plan was to go home and start grading those on Tuesday. I didn't start looking at them because I wasn't mentally clear enough until it was either Saturday or Sunday afternoon. And my throat is still really shot, so hopefully it'll last. Okay, so let's start with George Herbert on pages 962 and 63. Okay, just a little bit of brief background. I mean, very, very brief. It's just essentially what's in your textbook. Herbert, like Dunn before him, was an Anglican priest, or Dunn became an Anglican priest, in 1615. Herbert also became a priest. So you have Dunn, you have Herbert, and then one of the other authors we're going to read today, Robert Herrick, also. All three of these guys were Anglican priests. Right? Of these three, only one, however, writes solely what's called devotional poetry, or if you want, religious poetry, okay? Showing the soul's love for God and such. And that's Herbert. Herbert doesn't write anything other than devotional poetry. If you read even just a little bit of Donne, that's not Donne. The Flea is not devotional poetry by any means. Herrick's to the virgins to make much of time. That is not devotional poetry, which we'll talk about when we get to it. Okay, so Herbert's poems are all found in a book titled The Temple. Okay, and the temple is divided up into the architecture of a temple. So the beginning of the poems start with the porch, which is kind of like the entryway into the temple. And so you get this kind of progression, getting closer and closer and closer, going nearer and nearer and nearer to God, so to speak. Okay? So on 962, poem that I did not assign because I didn't think we would end up having time, turned out to be prophetic, you have a poem called The Altar. Okay? And then you have the Easter Wings on 963. They're both what kind of poems? They're variously called, if you want to be alliterative, picture poems or shape poems. Why? How they are presented on the page tells you something about what they are, something about what they mean. So if you look at the altar, it kind of looks like an altar. Look at Easter Wings. Specifically, look at the facsimile image. Okay? Because you've got that nice facsimile there, and page 34, so think of this part being on this page, and notice Herbert had the printer print the first line in what's called the gutter. So you read from here to here. And then on the next page, the first line is on the outside edge, and you read from there to there, which is kind of weird, because the one leads into the other. The one verse leads to the other verse. So how your textbook printed it here makes more sense, right? So let's look at these and notice what's happening in them, okay? It's Easter Wings. So the poem definitely has something to do with what? Easter, thank you. Lord, who created man in wealth and store, though foolishly he lost the same, decaying more and more till he became most poor. With thee, O let me rise as larks harmoniously, and sing this day thy victories, then shall the fall further the flight in me. Notice what's happened in that poem. How's it start? Lord who create. Go ahead, Brennan.
I was going to say, God who's given us great things, and then we squandered them and got rid of all of them.
Start off in wealth in store. It's the longest part of the poem. It's the longest line. And then what? Foolishly he lost the same. And the line gets a little shorter. Decaying more and more. It gets even shorter. Till he became 2 syllables. Most poor. So, starts off in wealth in store and becomes essentially nothing. With thee, notice most poor, with thee, 2 syllables, both the same. Oh, let me rise. And what happens? Gets larger. Most poor means what? Dead. Let me rise. It's Easter, right? So resurrection imagery. Oh, let me rise as larks. When do larks rise? In morning. John Donne's song At Break of Day mentions larks singing, okay? As well as we saw in the one sonnet by Shakespeare, sonnet 30, When are the Sessions of Sweet Silent Thought? I think it is. And sing this day, what day is it? Easter. Thy victories. Victories over what? Mankind becoming most poor. Death. Okay? Then shall the fall further the flight in me. What fall? Adam's fall. So the fall shall further the flight in me. The fall will therefore what? If it's going to further my flight, what's its purpose? Or what effect does it have on me, ultimately? Me, the speaker, not me personally. It is a... it's not the exact Latin phrase, but it's pretty close to it. Felix culpa. It is a fortunate fall. A fortunate sin. What a lucky thing that Adam screwed up. Why? Because of Adam's screw up, second person of the Trinity becomes human, incarnation, Christmas, dies, Good Friday, rises, Easter, and when he rises, what happens? Those who are, second stanza now, my tender age in sorrow did begin, and still with sicknesses and shame, thou didst so punish sin that I became most thin. Again, shrinking. With thee let me combine. Okay? And feel this day thy victory. How? For if I imp my wing on and you've got a gloss about imping. Imp means to take wings from a falcon and not wings, feathers from a falcon and stuff them into the wings of another falcon. For what purpose? To give that falcon greater lift. Okay? So, what are the feathers being imped on? If I imp my wing, my feathers on yours, then what happens to me? I rise with Christ. Okay? So he's talking about if I identify with you, then what? Affliction shall advance the flight in me. How so? Well, if you read Donne's Meditation 17, you'll see why. Hopefully we'll be able to get to that at the end. So it's Easter wings. Why Easter wings? What are the wings doing? What's a phoenix do? Classical illusion, not Harry Potter. Every 500 years, poof, bursts into flames. And then what?
Rises.
It grows and it rises again. It's a symbol or image of resurrection. That's what the image is. Rising and flying. And rising, not Icarus and Daedalus, get too close to the sun, but to get too close to the sun in this image. Okay? Turn from there to, we're going to skip several pages. No, wrong one. 971. We're only doing 3 poems by Herbert. Because for somehow, for some reason, I knew we would end up short on time. So, the next one. The collar. Notice the title. C-O-L-L-A-R. Okay? Interesting distinction between Donne, as an example, and Herbert. And you can go back to the Old English poetry. What did we say about all the titles for the Old English poems? None of them that we know of are original to the poems. That is, all those titles, Seafarer, Wanderer, Dream of the Rood, they're not in the manuscripts. Okay? Those are all titles. Even Beowulf is not in the manuscript. It has no title. All those titles are titles that later editors gave to the poems. Okay? Donne's poems. Manuscripts have titles to them, but we don't know if those are titles that Donne actually intended, because some of the poems have slightly different titles in some manuscripts. Not many. Most of them are fairly uniform. Okay? Herbert, we know the titles. He wanted all of these titles. Okay? So this title is C-O-L-L-A-R. What kind of collar is that? Right? It's what you wear around your neck for what purpose? Not you individually. I mean, you don't put a collar on yourself. What do you put them on? A dog or cat? You know, nobody walks cats. Okay? Dogs. Why does a dog have a collar? It's to control. Okay? So how should you read this first line? This first line and a half. Somebody read it for me. Anybody?
I struck the board and cried, no more, I will abroad.
No. Somebody else.
I struck the board and cried, no more, I will abroad.
Got your attention. I struck the board. That's what he means. Sorry, heart attacks, you know, people. He's not, I struck the board and cried, I will abroad. What's he saying? Every one of you has done this. You've done this. No more. I'm out of here. It's it. I'm done. Fini. Yeah, in about an hour. Not even that long. Okay? What's he saying? I have had it up to here. I will abroad. There's the door. What? What's the what? Shall I ever sigh and pine? What does pine mean?
Like long for?
Long for? Complain? Bitch? Moan? Gripe? That's what he's talking about. My lines and life are free. My line? What do you mean your lines are free? What's he mean? Lines to what? Think collar. What? How can lines have any relation to collar?
Like a leash?
Like a leash. Okay, close. What other kind of lines can act like a collar? Don't think line
Like a path?
as in a line on a board.
Like a path or a fence?
Boundaries, kind of like boundaries of life, or
Close. Think shipping. Think naval terminology. Any of you ever been on a boat? Any boat? What do you do to that boat when you get out of the boat? You tie it up. You moor it. That's what he's talking about in my lines. He doesn't have what? He doesn't have any ties. I don't have ties. I don't have something holding me down. Or think of a tent. If you put up a tent properly, that tent has what? Guidelines. Or guidelines, as they're called. For what purpose? To keep it from flopping over. My lines and life are free. Free as the road. It's like Bilbo Baggins. The road goes ever on. Nothing's going to stop me. I mean, this could be Jack Kerouac in the Beat Poets. Shall I be still in suit? Suit doesn't mean in a suit, though it might allude to that. In suit means what?
In attendance.
In attendance. Waiting on somebody. Have I no harvest but a thorn to let me blood, and not, that is, to bleed? Talking about kind of like the medicinal idea. And not restore what I have lost with cordial fruit? Sure, there was wine before my sighs did drag. And he starts giving us these Petrarchan images. Why? Because these are images that Petrarch used in his sonnets to his quote-unquote girlfriend Laura. She didn't know who he was. He saw her and he was like, wow, fell in love from a distance. Wrote a whole bunch of sonnets about her. Okay? That's how we get the sonnet tradition in English. So he uses these conventions. His sighs do what? They create hurricanes. They blast the countryside. His tears are like floods. Okay? A lot of hyperbole. So, there was corn before my tears to drown it, blah, blah, blah. Is the year only lost to me? What's he mean by the year only? Have I only spent a year? Has it only been 1 year? Okay? So he's telling us something. Whatever the speaker is quote-unquote pining about, a year has been involved. Okay? Have I no bays to crown it? Bays, your gloss tells you, laurel wreaths. A laurel wreath was given for what purpose?
Not a piece.
No. Victory. You've achieved something. Okay? Sophocles won a bunch of laurel wreaths. For what purpose? Oedipus the king. Oedipus of Colonus. Actually, he was dead by that one. Antigone. Okay? He won the prize for best plays. All right? So he is saying, have I no bays? Have I no rewards or awards? Have I no sign, no symbol to crown, to show what I've done over the past year? What, for some of you who are getting ready to graduate, I know Lavondra is getting ready to graduate. What is your crown? What is your victory for the last 4, 5, 6? I took 7 years for an undergraduate degree, you know. It's that stupid little piece of paper that says, I already graduated. Okay, that's it. Okay, that pretty much applied to me then. So, he says, no flowers, no garlands gay. That is, don't I have something tangible as a symbol of what I've done over the last year? I mean, when you graduate, you will have something tangible. You will have that diploma and student loans. All blasted, all wasted. That is all the time. Not so my heart. Ah, what's he speaking to? What is the heart? It's the seat of passion. It's the seat of impulse. It's not the seat of what? Reason, thought, deliberation, logic. Not so my heart. But there is fruit. Oh, and thou hast hands. There is fruit and thou hast hands implies what? Pick the fruit. Imply anything else? Which apple tree? Are we talking Johnny Appleseed apple tree? Eden. In other words, ooh, that looks good. Take a bite. Temptation, right? Your gloss tells you, an echo of the disobedient, blah, 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 blah. I think this is the first time I've seen that gloss in there. Recover all thy sigh-blown age on double pleasures. How do you recover all the sigh-blown age, let's say the last year, on double pleasures? So I didn't pick the fruit last year, so today I'm going to pick 2 of them. Possibly. What else could it mean? If I didn't do it before, if I didn't do anything in the last year, what am I going to do this year?
Make up for last
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you've probably heard of stories of, I always tell this particular one because it's real. It happened about, I don't know, remember what it was, 4 or 5 years ago. You've heard of stories of somebody who, they go to their doctor, they have a checkup, and they have their blood tests, and they get a letter in the mail or they get a call from their doctor, come in, and they find out you've got cancer or you have a terminal disease. You've got 3 months or 6 months to live or something. And some people, they take that to mean, well, shit, I'm going to go out with a bang. I'm going to go do everything I can in 6 months. In other words, I'm going to do what I should be doing over the next 20, 30 years in 6 months. Okay? True story. This happened, like I said, 4 or 5 years ago. Guy in Australia goes to his doctor, gets a letter in the mail. You have terminal cancer, I think it was. He's a young guy, late 30s, early 40s. It's like, damn, this sucks. And so he went and filled out every credit card application he could. Because, if you're alive, you get them, right? They just come automatically. And he fills them all out. And he gets like $500,000 in credit. And he does the round the world tour. And he gets back home. Yeah, you see where this is going. And he gets back home like 3 months later, and there's a letter from the doctor. Oops, lab screwed up. Wasn't you. And the guy's got, like $300,000 in credit card debt that he didn't have before. I'm pretty sure he sued, and the lab had to pay the credit card. What he was doing, exactly what our speaker here is saying. Okay? He's going to fill as much time as he can in that little bit of space. So, recover all thy sidelong age on double pleasures. And then we have a colon. Leave thy cold dispute of what is fit and not. Leave the cold dispute part aside for a moment. What is meant by of what is fit or not? Really close. 98%. It's not what is acceptable, what is right. Notice, now go back to the cold dispute. What is a dispute? A disagreement, an argument. Why is this argument cold? What's the argument about? What is right or not? Why is this argument cold? Okay, why else?
Because it's been a while.
Possibly. Every argument, if it's a true argument, it's based upon what? Louder? Facts. Information. Logic. Logic isn't you're thinking, you're in your early 20s, and you're alone, and you're lonely, and you decide, I want a significant other in my life. And so what do? Do you sit there and pull out a legal pad and pros and cons, and you start looking at people? And you write down names, pros. And you reason it all out, and therefore you go up to that other person and say, logic tells me, reason tells me, you and I are a perfect match. eharmony.com kind of a, Is that how it works? Any of you, is that how it worked? Not how it worked with me and my wife. Not at all how it worked with me and my wife, okay? That's a cold dispute. That is rational. It is logical of what is right and wrong, morality. Okay? Forsake thy cage. What cage? Thy rope of sands. Still hasn't answered what the cage is. It's now just restated the cage. The cage is now a rope of sands. Everybody here has been to the beach before, I'm assuming. You might have been buried in sand. And it might not be very much sand, a couple inches, but, it's fun to do that. Why? Because then you can play golfer and you get up there, like a monster. What happens if you dig a hole like 6 feet deep and you get down in the sand and you put the sand up to here? So you're stuck. That's not a rope of sands. How do you make a rope of sand? What do you make a rope out of? You could be like friends of mine, hemp, it has other purposes. What else? String, maybe leather, okay? Vine, twine, etc. You braid it and it becomes what? Stronger than the individual fibers. Sand. How are you going to make a rope of sand? Which petty thoughts have made. What's petty mean? Like petty cash. Disposable? Close. I think I heard it.
Leftover?
No, not quite leftover. Small. A petty cash drawer, that's where you keep change. That's where, little minor expenses. That's not where you keep the Benjamins, the $500 bills and such, okay? Or the $100 bills. Petty thoughts are what kind of thoughts? Small, little, insignificant, not major. So what's making the rope of sands and the cage? Small, little, petty thoughts. And they have made what? These petty thoughts have made to thee good cable. The good cable is juxtaposed with the rope of sands. Now, he doesn't mean cable like we mean cable, like this kind of cable, or this kind of cable, or the kind of cable that's down here that is securing this thing to the wall, which is made out of what? Steel. Whole bunch of braided steel fibers. He means cable how? The kind of cable that ties a ship into port. Okay? So what kind of cable is this? Well, if it's a little rowboat, it could be a little, 3/4 inch. But cable usually is referred to the kind of rope that you attach an anchor to, and the kind of rope that attaches or moors a large ship into port, which in Herbert's day, all the way up into the 20th century, could range anywhere from like this to, I've actually seen cable for some ships 6 feet in diameter. Rope, 6 feet in diameter. Obviously, that keeps a big ship in place. Okay? The petty thoughts do what? They become that kind of cable. They become so binding, so firm, so strong. For what purpose? To enforce and draw. Draw means what? It means drag. It doesn't mean draw. The word for draw is related to the word for tractor. Okay? It means to pull. So, to enforce and draw, and be thy law. Petty thoughts are not laws. Every one of you, when you get in your car, you'll see that. Because I doubt that you drive the exact speed limit everywhere you go. So, while thou didst wink, all this is happening while thou didst wink and wouldst not see. While thou didst wink at what? Would not see what? Oh, there's fruit. What did he wink at the fruit? Hey, baby. Is it that kind of winking? No. Winking here just refers to closing the eyes. While thou didst wink, notice, and wouldst not see. Wouldst not means desired not. Well, the reason he winks, he doesn't completely shut them, kind of closes them briefly and then looks again. Why? Because it's enticing. It's tempting. He wants to look, but he doesn't want to look. He wants to look, but he doesn't want to Away! Take heed. Away. Take heed of what? Forget your laws. Forget your rope of sands. Forget your cage. Leave. I will abroad. I will, present tense for what? Wouldst. I desire to. I wish to. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. Call in thy death's head there. Your memento mori. What's that? Reminder of death. It's the whole purpose in Act 5, Scene 1 of Hamlet. The gravedigger scene. You keep getting skulls thrown up. Why? Because what's going to happen at the end of the play? There's going to be skulls all over the stage. Not literal, but there's Hamlet, and there's Gertrude, and there's Claudius, etc., etc. Okay? What's the purpose of a death's head? You might be young, you might be in the prime of your life, but you will die. What does Hrothgar say to Beowulf after he comes back with Grendel's head? Yeah, you're young and strong now, but you're going to die too. Either old age, sword, spear, fire, famine, flood, old age, spear, old age. Get the idea? Nobody lives forever, bud. Put that thing away. What's the speaker saying? Don't remind me of death. I don't want to think about that right now. What do I want to think about? Leaving and having fun. That's what I want to think about. I'm going to Vegas, is what the speaker's kind of telling us. Tie up thy fears. Fears of what? Death. Because if you're reminded of death, what are you reminded of? Hamlet's great soliloquy. The undiscovered country from whose bourne no one returns. And he says that undiscovered country does what? Makes cowards of us all. It pales over with sickly hue resolution of thought. What's the resolution Hamlet is talking about there? Life sucks. Just kill yourself. Just don't go on with it. Yeah, but then you die, and then what happens? You don't know. Because you don't know what's beyond death. It might be God, judgment, hell. After all, he's spoken to somebody who is suffering the pangs of purgatory, the ghost. That's a pretty good clue not to go do something to yourself, okay? So, tie up thy fears. He that forbears to suit and serve his need. Your gloss. He that neglects to suit and serve his need deserves his load. What's that mean? If you don't do what, then what? Bingo. If you don't take what you want out of life, then you get what? What you deserve. So do what? Harry Potter thing here. Be a Slytherin. Slytherins are known for what? Ambition, cunning, stabbing others in the back. Great beer commercials. You only go around once. Go for the gusto. Live for what? Now. Why? Tomorrow you might be dead. We're going to talk about carpe diem in a few moments. So, if you forbear to suit and serve your need, those desires you have, then you get what you deserve. Little public service announcement here. If you decide not to vote, then guess what? You're stuck with who gets elected. So if you don't want to, deal with who gets elected, vote for somebody else. Doesn't matter a red, who, but vote for somebody at least. Otherwise, you have no say. Literally, no say or right to say. But. What does but always tell you? Always. Huge turn. Huge contrast. You could almost say but always means oops. What's the verb? Raved. What does rave always imply? Louder. Praise? Where do we use the word today? If we use it, what's that come before? Lunatic, mad, crazy, out of his... As I raved means what? As I went crazy. Out of my mind. Okay? And grew more fierce and wild. At every word. What does that mean at every word? No, more, I, will, abroad. Every word the speaker is saying, I did what? I went more and more and more crazy. Methoughts I heard one calling, cue the James Earl Jones voice, child. And I replied, Arr! My lord, because what's the child? Heal. Sorry. What else is the caller?
Sign of ownership.
Keep going. What did I say Herbert was at the beginning? He's a priest. What do Anglican priests?
Yeah.
They wear collars, man. The collar is for what purpose? It's twofold. It's to signal to others, I am a quote-unquote man of God or person of God in the modern Anglican Church. That is, I'm set apart. It's also for what purpose? It's a mori. It's a reminder to the person wearing it. I'm not like everybody else. I can't do what everybody else does. I can't suit and serve my need. Why? Because a priest doesn't suit and serve his or her needs. They do what? Think of Chaucer. Think of the parson. Serve others. The whole purpose. It's not about me. It's always about you. Okay? So the collar also, what is a possible third meaning? So it's one, like a dog collar. Two, it's like a priest collar. What's it sound like? You down there, listen to me. It's God calling at the very end of the poem. Okay, turn to the pulley just beneath that. Not at all like, I better put this lid on before I pour water all over everything. So when God at first made man, having a glass of blessings standing by, Dasani blessings, let us, said he, pour on him all we can. So he's talking about Adam. Let the world's riches, which dispersed lie, contract into a span. Okay? Span, distance between the tip of the thumb and the little finger of an extended hand. Remember, Madame Eglantine had that kind of forehead. Okay? So, let all the wealth of the world be contracted into a span. Now, literally, it's this. I don't think that's what Herbert means there, however. I think Herbert possibly has in mind, who is it? Da Vinci's famous painting. You have a guy standing like this? It's what? What's the image of? Man as the measure of all things. Why? Because according to Da Vinci, you could use the human form as the measuring stick for everything. After all, we have the foot. And the thumb is, it was thought, about an inch, etc. So let's take all the riches of the world and pour them into him. So what goes first? Strength. Why? Because without it, we die. That's why. Then beauty, then wisdom, then honor, then pleasure. And after almost everything is poured out, after God almost empties the bottle, God stops. He made a stay. Perceiving that alone of all his treasure, rest in the bottom lay. Notice the pun. Rest. What's meant by rest there? It's not the rest, which should be just whatever's left, right? It's rest, which is what the Hebrew, that's an S, Sabaoth or Sabbath refers to. It's rest. It's peace, contentment, satisfaction. Literally, what the word apatheia means. Passionless. Passionless doesn't mean I don't give a damn. It means not controlled by the passions. Perfect bliss. Perfect peace. So, God pours everything, and he says, whoa, hold on here. There's rest. If I should bestow this jewel, rest, also on my creature, he would adore my gifts instead of me. Why? Well, if man has all these things and rest, then man no longer has what? Louder?
The desire for God.
Exactly. Need of anything. Not just God. Anything. Okay? And he would rest in nature, not the God of nature. So both should losers be. Man would be a loser. Why? Because he wouldn't need God, the source of nature. God would be a loser. Why? Because he wouldn't have man to adore him. So let him keep the rest, strength, beauty, wisdom, honor, pleasure, and all the other stuff. But keep them with repining restlessness. Repining. I hate the word, or the gloss, fretful. Because nobody uses the word fretful today. People don't walk around and go, oh, I'm fretting. What's fretful mean? Worrisome. What else? What's repining mean? Complaining, moaning, griping. It's what you feel when you feel like there's something more and you just, it's Bono's. I still haven't found what I've been searching for. It's Bono channeling St. Augustine there. St. Augustine in his Confessions says, every person is made with a hole in them. And we all spend our lives trying to fill that hole. Some of us fill it with this stuff. The more and more technology we get. Some of us fill it with this stuff. The more and more money we get. Some of us fill it with sex. Some of us fill it with drugs. Some of us fill it with booze. Some of us fill it with all of those combined, etc. What's the hole? According to St. Augustine, it's God. It's a God-sized hole that only a God can fulfill. So we try to fill it with all these little gods, all these little idols. So, let him keep the rest, but keep them with repining restlessness. Let him be rich and weary. Right? Because what are we told about money? Okay, according to Timothy, it's the root of all evil. Radix malorum est cupiditas. The root of all evil is, there it said, greed. Not money, it's the desire for money. Two different things, okay? What else? It can't buy happiness. I've got a t-shirt that says, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy beer and cigars, and that's pretty close. Right? If you like beer and cigars, it is pretty close. Can't buy happiness, right? We've seen people throughout history who've thought the amassing of wealth would buy them happiness. And it doesn't. So, let him be rich and weary. Why? That at least, if goodness lead him not, goodness, inner virtue, morality, and such, yet weariness may do what? Toss him, fling him to my breast. I give up. There's no other answer. There's no other way. There's got to be something more. That kind of thing. Think of the wanderer. What point does the wanderer get to? What's he say towards the middle of the poem, towards the end of the poem, about life here on earth? It sucks, man. Why? Your friends die, your lovers die, your wives die, your children die, your dogs die. Everything dies. There's no what here? Permanence. There's no stability. There's no rest. You want to find rest? Don't look for it here. Look for it in heaven. Okay? All right. That's Herbert. If we have time, we might come back to another one by Herbert. So let's go to, let's see, where do you go? Let's go to Herrick. Just before Herbert. Now, Herrick is also, as I said, a priest, but he's kind of a different kind of priest. He's a happy-go-lucky, let's have some drinks kind of a priest. Okay? And if you need an example, look really, really briefly to the argument of his book on page 956. Now, it was common during this period, Herrick's day, Shakespeare's day earlier, for a book to have a poem like this at the beginning. That is, it's telling you, here's what I'm writing about. Okay? I sing of brooks, of blossoms, birds, and flowers, bowers, April, May, of June, and July flowers. Notice what he's talking about. What time of year? Spring and summer. Notice what he's not going to talk about. Winter and fall. Death and dying, you know. I sing of maypoles, hawk carts, wassails, wakes. Not wakes, you know, the funeral wakes, but of bridegrooms, brides, and of their bridal cakes. I write of youth, of love, and have access by these to sing of cleanly wantonness. That is, innocent wantonness. I sing of dews, of rains, and piece by piece of balm, of oil, of spice, and ambergris. I sing of times trans-shifting, and I write how roses first came red and lilies white. I write of groves, of twilights, and I sing the court of Mab, the fairy queen, and the fairy king. I write of hell, and ever shall, I sing and ever shall, of heaven, and hope to have it after all. In other words, he's kind of saying, human experience, that's what I'm writing about. Okay, let's go to the one that we've assigned. To the virgins to make much of time. Yeah, you need to know that exact title, by the way. It will show up on the exam. The exact title. Don't, to the girls, you know, to have fun. It's not a Cyndi Lauper song, okay? Or Madonna even. So, to the virgins to make much of time. Is virgin specified? Is it delineated? Is it defined? Is it women? It's not. There's only one word in that poem that's going to indicate possibly the gender of those being referred to. And even then, it's kind of nebulous. Okay? So, this is what I would call, at the very least in this course, but I think it's actually, you know, it really applies to all English literature. This is one of the two great Carpe Diem poems in all of English literature. Carpe Diem, Latin, seize the day. If you didn't know what it was before, you've never seen Dead Poets Society, and if you're an English major, you have to see that before you graduate. It's like a, you know, final requirement. You can't get your diploma without it. Okay? So be careful, Evandria. I'll make sure. So, gather ye rosebuds while ye may, old time is still a-flying. And this same flower that smiles today, tomorrow will be dying. It's pretty much it, right there in a nutshell, 4 simple lines. What has the speaker told us? Pick those flowers today. Why? Yeah, tomorrow they won't be there. Substitute flower with whatever you want. Joy, pleasure, happiness, sex, whatever. Okay? Use it today because you may not have it tomorrow. Because you might walk out of here. So, there's my morbid statement for the day. The glorious lamp of heaven. The sun, the higher he's getting, the sooner will his race be run, and nearer he's to setting. So notice a different image. What's the first image? Rosebuds, right? Rosebuds hasn't opened, so gather them today. Why? Because tomorrow the petals will be gone. Today, the next stanza, the sun is what? We, because of our perspective here on earth, we talk about the sun doing what? Rising and setting. It doesn't rise and set, right? Notice that is metaphorical language that we still use all the time. Okay? The higher he's to getting what? What's he mean the higher he's to getting? Once it reaches, what's PM? Prime meridian. That's what it means. Once it reaches here, you guys haven't reached here yet. Most of you are still somewhere in here. Guess where I am? I'm like here. The sooner it gets to here, what? I mean, it's not this, it's this. Okay? The sooner, nearer he's to setting. So that's the second image. Third image. That ages best which is the first. It doesn't mean when you're a baby. When youth and blood are warmer. But being spent, the worst and worst times still succeed the former. What is that time? When youth and blood are warmer. So let's get rid of the sun. Let's just use the biblical 70. Dante says, midway through this life's journey, I found myself when he was 35. Right? So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. What's he talking about? Is it 5, 10? No. It's probably this period. You guys. 20 to 30. This is when youth and blood are warmer. Remember the image of bacon grease that I've talked about before. Hot, just fried bacon. You slosh it all around. You leave it on the oven. Cools for several hours. 30, 40, 50, 60. I'm 57. Guess what? Down here, it's hard, man. I mean, you can push your finger in it. It's not rock hard, but it's not sloshing around. What's he saying? What's tomorrow going to be compared to today? Worse. And the day after tomorrow? It's going to be even worse. A week from today when you take your exam, you want to take it tomorrow, right? Because a week from now, it's going to be even worse. Metaphorically, that's what the speaker obviously means. He doesn't mean literally. Okay? Why? What happens every day you age?
Get closer to death.
You get closer to death. It's like another grain in that hourglass of life. See, because the moment you're born, what happens? The clock starts running backwards. It's not you get more life, you get more death. You got the most life right here. It's that first, wah! That's, according to some, that's the death scream. It's, no! Let me go back. Okay? So, then we get the conclusion and a possible indication of who the poem is directed to. Then be not coy. Coy is one of those adjectives that seems to be singularly almost attached to women. You seldom hear, in literature at least, coy being ascribed to men. What's coy mean? If a woman is described as being coy, what's being said about her?
Like,
Louder.
Kind of like a tease.
Kind of like a tease. That's a little stronger than I want to go to.
plain innocent?
Bingo. Especially the first word. Playing. Okay? How is the relationship between men and women often described?
Well,
Louder. Cat and mouse. War. Right? It's war of the sexes. It's a game. I mean, what are we told about the wife of Bath? She knew of that old game, the dance, well. Right? 5 husbands. What about Lady Bertilac? Oh, she knows all the stuff about love. Okay, Sir Gawain says. Okay? So it's this idea that it's what? It's give and take. What's the problem? When do you give and when do you take, right? Because Sir Gawain says, yeah, but if I take, in my country, that's called rape. And she goes, oh, you're so much stronger than me. You can take any time you want. What kind of woman would say no? Be not coy. That is, don't play games with me. That's what the speaker means. Let's lay our cards on the table. What's he talking about? Sex. The speaker's probably just talking about sex. Don't be coy. Use your time. When? When you're young and quote unquote sexy. Whether you are drop dead gorgeous or not. Okay? And while you may go marry. The go marry doesn't necessarily mean go get a ring on your finger. Because marry also sounds like,
happy.
depending on your pronunciation, maybe you say marry, where I say marry, marry. To me, marry, and marry, they're all the same. I don't hear any difference in those words. Okay? So, be not coy, but use your time. And while you may go marry. Why? For having lost but once your prime. Prime. What's prime mean? Youth. What else? Best. First. That's what prime means. Prime number. Okay. What else? You may forever tarry. So once you've lost your best, once you've lost your youth, once you've lost your first, you might wait forever. But prime there in its initial meaning is youth. Why? If you don't use it, let's say 20 to 30, if you don't use it then what might happen? The speaker is suggesting.
You never get to.
You'll never get to. Why? Ew, old, ugly, wrinkled, saggy. No, I'm not coming near you. Okay? Now you think that's offensive. Go to Andrew Marvell. On page 979. Real briefly about Marvell. Served for a while as John Milton's secretary. He kind of got John Milton not quite out of jail, but he kept John Milton from going to jail. Okay? Why? Because Milton was an important figure in the interregnum, the period between the kings, okay? Because he was Puritan. And when the Restoration occurred, the Stuart monarchy was restored, they kind of wanted to, round up those responsible for the Restoration, and Milton was one of those. Andrew Marvell kind of said, no, you can't do that because he's really important, intellectual, all that kind of stuff. So Marvell writes a whole bunch of poems, and To His Coy Mistress is one of the most frequently anthologized poems of this period. Okay? So notice the title. Herrick's was To the Virgins to Make Much of Time. That is, use your time wisely. Wisely, variously defined. This one's To His Coy Mistress. So the speaker of the poem is talking to his mistress. What does mistress mean? Because it's important. You have to define that kind of term. Is it the person he's sleeping with? Read the poem. No. No. She has not slept with him. That is crystal clear. So is it someone he wants to sleep with? Oh yeah. He makes that also crystal clear. How's it begin? Notice the poem is in 3 stanzas. And it begins with what? A conditional. A conditional. Had we but world enough in time tells us what? We don't. We don't have world enough, okay? And we don't have time enough. Why not? Because we're all limited by time. None of us is infinite. None of us will go on forever. Not in this body, maybe, okay? Had we but world enough in time, this coyness lady were no crime. So the very beginning of the poem indicates that her coyness is a crime. Why? Because it's a condition contrary to fact. The fact is, we don't have world enough and we don't have time. Therefore, your coyness is a crime. Against whom? Me. Why? Because I want to sleep with you. So your crime is against me. You're breaking my laws. Tells us something about the speaker, right? So, if we had world enough in time, let's imagine that we do for a moment, for several lines. Here's what we would do. We would sit down and think which way to walk and pass our long love stay. How many of you have done that before? Maybe not literally with a person of the opposite sex or person of the same sex possibly. I kind of imagine most of you, maybe when you were a little kid, middle of summer, you and a friend did something like this. I sure as hell know I wasted an awful lot of days. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. And what do? You sit around saying, I don't know. What do you want to do? For an entire day long and you don't do anything. That's what he's talking about. If we had world enough in time, if we lived for all eternity, we could do what?
Play your games.
For a whole lot of years. Just sit there and go, I don't know. What do you want to do? Thou, by the Indian Ganges side, would do what? Shouldst rubies find. Those are the riches of the East, you know. Meanwhile, I, by the tide of Umber, would complain. What's the tide of Umber? Umber is the river Umber in northern England, above which is Northumbria. It is a tidal river, okay? And when he says I would complain, he's not saying I would sit there and go, damn, I wish she wasn't by the Ganges. I wish she was here with me. Complain there means I would write love poetry. About what? About her, while she's over by the Ganges River. I would love you 10 years before the flood. What flood? It's capitalized, notice.
Like Noah's flood?
Noah's flood, which is what? Genesis 6, something like that? So, way back. So, I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse till the conversion of the Jews. When is that? The end of time, Judgment Day. When the Jews will convert. Not all of them, some of them, 144,000, according to some interpretations of the book of Revelation. So what kind of time frame were we talking about?
Pretty long.
Pretty soon after creation, because Noah's like Adam's great-grandson. So you're talking a couple hundred years, to whenever the end is. Here's what would happen during that period. My vegetable love should grow faster than empires. Vegetable love has nothing to do with length. It's not talking phallic. I've had students go, oh, that's a dirty image, Dr. Vegetable love means what? Plant a watermelon seed or a pumpkin seed. And it doesn't sprout overnight, right? You don't get watermelons in 27 days. like you do radishes and lettuce. It's 90 to 120 days. It's slow growing, okay? That's what he says his love would be like. And he's going to give us some numbers. 100 years. For what? 100 years should go to praise her eyes. So she's got good eyes. Okay? Oh, and on thy forehead gaze. So eyes and forehead, he's sticking the whole package. 200 to adore each breast. Let's assume she's normally endowed. So 400 years for her breasts. Okay. 100 years for eyes and forehead, 400 years for breast. What are we being told by this guy?
Priorities.
Priorities. I've never had a student say that. That's a good way of putting it. Priorities, okay? And then what? 30K to the rest. This is a blazon of types, okay? It's a category or categorization of the beloved's beauty. Where is he starting? Top. Where is he moving? Down. 100, 200, 30,000. Tells us where his emphasis is. An age at least to every part. And then he pulls out the romance. And the last age should show your heart. He's smooth. For lady, you deserve this state. Nor would I love you, let's see here, at a lower rate. That's what he's doing. Come on, baby, you're worth at least, I got $9 here. By introducing that idea of rate, he completely economizes. Not economizes, making wise use of money, but he turns it into an economic kind of transaction. What do you imagine, if you imagine, that this poem is something like a dramatic monologue for a moment? What do you imagine the auditor does at this point? If she's listening to this. Yeah. At the very least, I see a finger going up. At the very most, I see somebody going down for the count. He's like, no. Hold on. But at my back, stanza 2. I always hear time's winged chariot drawing near. Why? Notice where time's winged chariot is coming from. It's coming from behind. Why? Because what do we try to do with time? Outrun it. Right? How many of you are looking forward to death? I mean, just today, you're like, all right, today's the day. I'm going to die. And not planning suicide. But you're thinking, I'm going to go out this classroom and. Yeah, I don't think so. We try to outrun it. That's why time's winged chariot. It's winged. This is a false. Because it's not horse-drawn. It's what? It's jet-driven, And yonder all before us lie deserts of vast eternity. Let's say the Christian tradition, the Christian myth, if you want. What's eternity supposed to be like? Happy? It's what? It's paradise, right? Heaven is supposed to be paradise. Have any of you ever been to the Mojave Desert? I've driven through it multiple times because I used to live in California. That's not paradise. Arizona, I don't care. Arizona's not paradise. Oklahoma isn't paradise. Oklahoma's not desert. It's not paradise. It sucks, especially when you're driving through it. You can put your car in autopilot, put on cruise control, and go to sleep for about 60, 80 miles because it's just straight. through Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle, New Mexico, until you get to about Albuquerque. Then you have to steer a little bit, okay? Yonder before us lie deserts of vast eternity. Desert implies what? Hot, dry, sandy, dead. Thy beauty shall no more be found. Well, that's not cheery. Nor in thy marble vault shall sound my echoing song. What's her marble vault?
Her tomb.
Her tomb. In other words, honey, in the future, I'm not going to be sitting there singing these beautiful love songs to you. No. Disgusting image coming up. Just a little warning. Then in the future, when you're dead and your body's in your tomb, then worms shall try that long preserved virginity. Try, prove, test. Your gloss says test and taste. Yeah, you can go into, all kinds of weird kinds of stuff if you want. So, what's he mean? You wouldn't let me try, prove, test your virginity. So guess what's going to happen? Well, if it's not going to be me, one, it's not going to be anybody. Because, if you're not going to take me, you're not going to take any man, the speaker is suggesting. Little bit of ego, okay? And what? If it's not going to be me, it's going to be worms going in and out. That's foul, right? Okay? In your quaint honor, turn to dust. Quaint honor. Does the book gloss it this time? No, it doesn't. I don't think I've ever seen any book. Yeah, actually, which one was it? I think one of the other editions, maybe earlier editions, actually glossed this, and then it looks like it took it out. Quaint here, okay, quaint honor, what's he talking about? If we talk about something as quaint, it means what? Small, fragile,
Kind of outdated.
delicate, outdated, okay? Honor, what's he talking about? Her virginity, okay? Women's honor was their virginity and such. So your quaint honor. This, however, doesn't just mean small, fragile, outdated, fine, nice, okay? It comes from Middle English. Chaucer uses it in not the Wife of Bath's Tale, but the Miller's Tale. Excuse me, not the Miller's Tale. Yes, the Miller's Tale. Miller's Tale, which is a retelling of the Knight's Tale, which is a great romance poem. But in the Miller's Tale, the miller has, rather than a case of two knights vying for the love of a single woman, we have a single woman who's sleeping around. She has a husband sleeping around with another guy, and then there's another guy who wants to sleep around with her. Right? The guy she's sleeping around with is named Nicholas. But Chaucer pins another thing to his name. Hinda Nicholas. Nice thing about the word Hinda is it can have two meanings. It can mean gentle, and it can mean handy. Well, what we're told about Hinda Nicholas is that he was frequently grabbing the woman, Allison, same name as the wife of Bath, by the way, by the quinta. So, Handy Nicholas is grabbing Allison by the quinta. Does this word sound like anything? Have any sounds that are similar to a pejorative slang word in modern English? Yes, you've got the k, you've got the you've got the and the t. It's cunt. So we have this guy grabbing her by the genitalia, and then you get this. Your quaint honor, your genitals honor will do what? Turn to dust. Use it or lose it. Okay? Oh, but that's not all. And into ashes all my lust. Yeah, lust there isn't just desire. Okay? So, what's he say? The grave's a fine and private place, but none, I think, do there embrace. Well, Donne has a poem titled The Relic, and it's about somebody digging up a grave and finding two bodies buried in the single grave. Why? They did it all the time in England. And in the grave, there is one body that has a bracelet of hair around a wrist, and it's the hair from the other body. Okay? They're relics. That is, they are symbolic of saints of love. This speaker is going, yeah, but nobody really does that. No. This is what you get in the grave. Dust and ashes. Now, therefore. What's the now mean? Go back to the beginning. Had we, but we don't. But at my back, that's what? Now, kind of implying towards the future. Now, therefore. While the youthful glue sits on thy skin like morning dew, and you got a big long footnote because nobody really knows what the glue means. Is it glue like Elmer's? You got Elmer's on your face? Or something else, okay? But what's he mean? Whatever the glue is, it's youthful and it sits on her face like morning dew. What happens to morning dew?
Grows up.
It evaporates. That is, it's there, and then the next moment it's not there. It's suddenly gone. What's going to happen to that youthful glue, whatever it is, or hue? It's going to disappear. But it's there now. Right there. It's here now. And while thy willing soul transpires at every pore with instant fires, what's the speaker saying about her? Let me rephrase that. What's the speaker saying about her towards him? Some of you might have heard this before. It's been said in films. Come on, you want me. That's what he's saying. You want me. Your willing soul. Notice, the body obviously isn't yet. But her soul is doing what? They had no idea. Pheromones. It's just sending out pheromones. Those scent hormones. It transpires. It's breathing out with what? Instant fires. She's hot for him. Now, let us sport us while we may. And now, like amorous birds of prey, rather at once our time devour than languish in the slow. What is he talking about? Amorous birds of prey. Eagles, kites, falcons, etc. Well, it was thought in the Renaissance that birds of prey mated by flying way up high, and then the male would mount the female and they would drop. In other words, they'd stop doing this. So they drop while they're mating, and she's going, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, before they smack. What's being implied there? What's happening to time?
Speeding up.
Yeah. Any of you ever had that kind of, not literally, that kind of experience? Major faux pas. Ever been in an accident?
Yeah.
Where one of two things happens, and either or it. Had an accident once, flipped my car, slid about 100 yards on the hood with the pavement right here, because I was, and when I flipped, it was like all the movies, slow motion. Took like 2 seconds, felt like 30 minutes. Okay? So he's saying we have to do what? We have to eat up time rather than what? Languish in his slow chewing. You don't want time to do what? Take a little bite here, little bite there. Let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball. In other words, let's take male, female, and what do you get when you put them together? Neither male nor female. It's a single thing, okay? And do what? Tear our pleasures with rough strife. He's not talking about sadomasochism or bondage or, dominatrixes or anything weird like that. Through the iron gates of life. What's he mean? Let's use our time. Let's become masters of time. Let's control time. Thus, though we cannot make our sun stand still, yet we'll make him run. In other words, we're going to make the sun really have to work to catch up to us. Now, even with the foul imagery, that is a great Carpe Diem poem. Is it meant seriously? Is the speaker going, hey, Brennan, think I can use this at a bar? Think it'll work? Think I can go up to some? No, it's not. What's the purpose? Look how smart I am. Look how witty this is. Yeah, even maybe, look how foul I can be without literally being foul. Because the foulness is all what?
Implied.
It's all implied. It's all figurative. Okay? Okay, I said I wanted to try to do Dunn's Meditation 17, but we don't have time to do Dunn's Meditation 17 because that requires more than 7 minutes. Let's see here. So we'll stop there. The Dunn stuff that was on the lecture will be on the exam. Okay, that was on the lecture, the video lecture I sent out. The exam will just be primarily like 90%. Everything since the last exam, so just the Renaissance stuff, the Shakespeare stuff forward. And, if I send out other video lectures, that kind of stuff, probably be, I don't know, somewhere between 30, 50 points extra credit, at least 30, probably 30. That can go all the way back to the beginning. Okay? Exam's Tuesday, week from today.
I think same format than what we did.
Yeah, exact same format as before. Sorry. May 2nd, Thursday. May 2nd, Thursday. It's 10 a.m. right here.
I'm not going to be here next Tuesday.
May 2nd, here, 10 o'clock. All right, thank you all. I've enjoyed it. Don't know if you have. I take that back. I can.